Let's talk to Professor Meg Russell, Director of the Constitution Unit at University College London and author of the book, The Contemporary House of Lords, Westminster Bicameralism Revived. Meg, very good evening to you. What do you make of these proposals from the Labour Party?
Well, you've reeled through quite a number of proposals, and there's quite a lot they're planning to do, and I think it's broadly sensible. There's one important one which I think you didn't mention, which I think is in a way perhaps the most important, which is that they've said they want to reform the appointments process to ensure the quality of new appointees. And I think I'm very strongly in agreement that the size of the House of Lords is too big. It should be reduced. We've actually done public opinion polling at the Constitution Unit, and there's overwhelming public support for the House of Lords to be no larger than the House of Commons. There's also overwhelming public support for some of the power to be taken out of the hands of the Prime Minister and for the Independent Appointments Commission to be strengthened. So I do hope that's something they're going to do. And I think that these things are connected, because actually there are these proposals to move people out of the Lords, particularly on age, which I think is somewhat controversial. But equally important, if not more so, to the size of the place is how many are put in at the other end. And until we get a grip on Prime Ministers over-appointing to the House of Lords, we're not going to be able to keep it to a desirable size. So I would have liked to see a commitment on reducing and controlling the number of appointments, as well as thinking about moving people out. I'm, like you, a bit sceptical on the age thing. I think it's too blunt, really. I think it would have been sensible to come up with proposals to say that we're going to try and get the numbers down. But the most sensible way, I think, would have been really to go to the political parties and say, look, we've all got to get our numbers down. This is something similar to what happened when Blair got rid of the hereditaries in 1999, but some were allowed to stay. Each party group was allowed to choose which ones it wanted to keep. And I think if you were to go to party groups, you would get them choosing to keep some of the over 80s and choosing to get rid of some of the less active or less useful or less reputation-enhancing members, many of whom are actually well under 80. The ones that we hear about in the news who bring the place arguably into disrepute are very rarely over 80. And some of the over 80s are people that we respect very much. I mean, on the Labour benches, you've got people like Neil Kinnock, John Prescott, Joan Bakewell. On the Conservative benches, people like Chris Patten, quite well-respected people. And some of the people that we're hearing about who are a bit more questionable are rather younger. So I think it would have been better to go to the party groups and say, look, you choose who you want, who are your most valuable members. But I think the principle of reducing the numbers is a very sensible one.
But of course, this could be entirely undermined in the first week of a Labour government, couldn't it? Because it is rumoured that Keir Starmer himself is going to create dozens, if not up to 100 peers, because if you look at the arithmetic of the membership of the House of Lords, the Conservatives have 275 peers, Labour 103 fewer, 172, the Liberal Democrats 79, Bishops 25, they should be gone, the Greens 2, Plaid 2, the DUP 6, and then there's various crossbenchers, well, quite a lot of crossbenchers, actually, 181. So it's entirely understandable if a Labour Prime Minister coming in says, well, look, I'm not going to be able to get my legislation through the House of Lords, so I therefore need to rebalance this in some way. And that's presumably what Keir Starmer is going to do.
Well, I think it is entirely understandable, and it's connected to my point about over-appointment, because Boris Johnson appointed far too many, David Cameron appointed far too many, Theresa May was rather more controlled in her appointments, and that's resulted in there being too many Conservatives. They outnumber Labour by about 100, which if you're going to have a Labour government, that's not really the right balance. Something that would contribute to that is the proposal to get rid of the hereditary peers, because there's 92 hereditary peers. I think it's 47 of them who are Conservatives and only about 3 or 4 who are Labour. So if you got rid of the hereditary peers, and it's not clear to me whether they're intending to do it all in one go, but I rather hope so, that would reduce the size by 92, which would be a big help overall, and it would reduce the Conservative benches by 47, so you get some rebalancing. I suspect that if there is a Labour government elected, quite a number of Labour peers will actually retire voluntarily, because there's quite a lot of Labour people who are hanging on, who would really quite like to have retired, but they're hanging on just to keep the numbers up, just to keep the Labour vote up. And that would effectively free up quite a lot of seats that Starmer could then fill with new people without necessarily making the place bigger overall.
Well, there's lots to get our teeth into here, isn't there? Meg, thank you very much indeed. That's Professor Meg Russell there.